All right, everybody, welcome back. You know what time. It is time for another deep dive.
Definitely.
And today we're diving deep into the world of startups.
Yeah.
And to guide our deep dive today, we have like the Startup Bible. We have the Startup Owner's Manual
Mhm.
by Steve Blank and Bob Dorf.
Oh,
Um, I'm so
uh-huh.
excited to unpack this book because like it's just it's known for being like this essential read for anybody who's like even remotely interested in entrepreneurship, in
Ugh.
starting their own business.
Right.
So it should be a good one. And what's even cooler is that we have not just the book to pull from, but we also have a recent interview with Steve Blank himself.
Yeah.
So we're going to get his like up-to-date thinking as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Where do we even begin with this?
Well, I think a great place to start is with kind of Blank's main idea, and that is that startups are not simply smaller versions of large companies.
Okay.
They're completely different animals.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. He actually says that they're on a quest for what he calls a repeatable and scalable business model.
Ah, okay. And so what does that mean? Like, how does that actually change how you approach, if you're starting a company, if you're a startup, how does that change like your mindset, your approach to everything?
I think it shifts the focus from like just execution.
Mhm.
Big companies, they have, pretty much a set business model.
Yeah.
They know their markets,
Yeah.
and they're mainly focused on, just executing that, producing and selling their products.
Yeah, and showing the products and like, just doing that well,
Right. Yeah.
scaling, but in a way that they have a roadmap.
Right.
But for a startup, you're like searching for that roadmap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're operating under a lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
And their primary goal is to find a way to create and deliver value that can be repeated consistently and
Gotcha.
scaled
Okay.
to a larger market.
Gotcha.
So you're not, just kind of going off of what's been done. You're exploring new things.
Right. So it's like almost like I don't know, it's like a cruise ship versus a speedboat.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Like, a startup is like they're going out there, they don't necessarily like know exactly where they're going to end up. They're kind of figuring out like what are the currents, what are um the best path forward. Whereas a big company is like, okay, we're going from point A to point B. We know how to get there. We're just going to like chug along on our course.
Yeah, they're very much set on their course.
Yeah.
And they're not going to, deviate too much.
Yeah.
But a startup is, constantly adjusting based on, what they're learning.
Totally. Yeah. And so how does that actually like how does that impact what a startup does?
Yeah.
Like what do they actually do differently knowing that that's the case?
Well, he actually, Blank gives us an actual framework, a method for approaching, building a startup under these conditions.
Yeah. And it's actually something that he talks about in the book
Mm-hmm.
and also in the interview.
Yes.
So it's clearly like core to his thinking is what's called the customer development method.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sounds, just from the name, that
Yeah.
sounds like it's super important.
It really is.
So tell me, what is this customer development method all about?
Well, essentially, it's all about making sure that you're not building something that nobody wants.
Ah, okay.
So it's a structured process um, for getting out of the building and talking to real customers,
Gotcha.
testing your ideas early on, and most importantly, being willing to what he calls pivot
Pivot.
if the market signals aren't there.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So like being willing to like change directions if it's not,
Right, exactly.
it-
It's not working.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's a really important aspect of this because, a lot of startups, they fall in love with their idea.
And they just, they keep pushing forward even when there's, no evidence that anybody actually wants it.
Oh, yeah.
But this method forces you to, to be honest with yourself,
Yeah.
to validate your assumptions.
So what does pivoting actually look like?
Well, it can mean a lot of different things.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily mean scrapping everything and starting over.
Okay.
It could be, changing your product,
Gotcha.
your target market,
Yeah.
your pricing strategy,
Uh,
your marketing message.
It could even be like your whole business model,
It could be, yeah.
like just like a fundamental shift.
Right.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, based on what you learn from your customers.
Interesting. And Blank actually, he says something, it's kind of a scary quote, but I think it's really important for people to hear. He says, most startups fail because they build products no one wants.
Yeah, that's a very blunt statement,
It's very blunt. Right.
but it's very true.
It's very true. I've seen that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it highlights, why this customer development method is so important,
Yeah, totally.
because it forces you to validate your assumptions
Yeah. Uh,
before you invest significant time and resources.
yeah, you don't want to like spend years building something only to find out that nobody wants it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that, I mean, that makes me think about another concept that he touches on, which is kind of this myth of build it and they will come,
Yes.
which, I think a lot of people like think of, that's how things work.
Right.
You just, you build an amazing product and like customers will magically appear.
Yeah, and Blank really pushes back on that.
He does.
Yeah, and he says, that's just pure guesswork.
Yeah.
Startups need to get out of the building,
Okay.
talk to potential customers,
Mm-hmm.
and really understand their pain points, their needs, before they even think about building solutions.
Right. So understand the problem before you start like creating the solution.
Yeah.
And so instead of assuming we know what people want, we need to actually go out there and figure it out.
And he actually says that the business model itself is essentially a hypothesis that needs rigorous testing.
Oh, interesting.
So you're constantly, you're putting it out there, you're seeing how people react.
Yeah. So what are some ways that startups can actually like go about doing that? Like what are some tangible things they can do to implement this customer development process?
Well, there are a lot of different strategies.
Okay.
And they can be adapted depending on, the type of business. It could
Yeah.
be, just setting up simple landing pages
Mm-hmm.
to gauge interest in a product idea.
Okay.
You could do surveys
Yeah.
to gather feedback on features.
Mm.
Even just going out and, having coffee with your target customer
Yeah, yeah.
just to understand their challenges.
So like really getting like one-on-one.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
deep conversations.
Okay, cool.
The key is to, get creative
Yeah.
and find ways to gather feedback early and often.
Gotcha. And, a key part of this, like talking to customers and understanding their problems, it's also figuring out like who are the right customers to talk to.
Right.
And Blank talks a lot about this idea of like identifying your ideal customer.
He actually has a term for them.
He
He
does.
calls them early evangelists.
Oh, early evangelist. I like that. Okay.
Yeah, they're the early adopters,
Okay.
the enthusiasts,
Yeah.
who are, they're the ones who are most likely to not only buy your product, but also help shape it
Okay.
and become your biggest advocates.
Oh, that's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the people who are, they're hungry for a solution to the problem you're solving,
Yeah.
and they're willing to, take a chance
Yeah.
on a new company.
And like give you feedback along the way and like
Right.
be a part of like shaping what you build.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So much of this, from what we've talked about so far, it seems like, instead of being focused on like executing a perfect plan,
Hmm.
it's much more about like discovery.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about, being comfortable with uncertainty
Okay.
and being willing to learn and adapt.
Cool. So if we had to like boil all of this down to one key takeaway for our listeners,
Mhm.
what would it be?
I think, to channel Steve Blank, I think he'd say, don't assume, test everything.
I love that. Test everything.
Yeah.
And it applies not just to your product,
Right.
but like everything, your pricing,
Your marketing messages.
your distribution channels.
Yeah.
Like everything.
Put it out there and see what sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for all of you out there who are like dreaming of starting your own business or
Yeah.
just like intrigued by the world of startups, I think here's something for you to kind of like chew on. If you were starting a business today, what would be the very first thing you would test?
Ooh,
And how would you go about testing it?
that's a good question.
So keep exploring these concepts.
Hmm.
The power of this stuff, I think, extends far beyond just starting a business.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it can like help you approach any new project, any new challenge with just like a more innovative and adaptable mindset.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's it for today's deep dive. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
We'll see you next time.
See